of the Leominster Conservation Commission for June 25th, 2019. We have the first 3 hearings continued, are going to be continued. I will just read off the DEP file numbers. It's 199-1086, and that is on Mary Ave Extension. DEP 199-1085, that is for the roadway for Mary Street Extension. And the 602 hearing is for Orchard Hill Park Drive, that's DEP 199-1083. Those have all been continued to our meeting on July 9th. Is this one on 602? You just don't have it stated as July 9th continued.
Yes, because I just received the email.
Okay.
You'd like that one continued.
Okay. We'll move on to our regular meeting because our 6:15 people are not here. So, certificates of compliance. Let's look at some photos. 199-1062 is Pierce Street. They were here. Why would your phone, Angie?
It's a very comprehensive environment.
Last time they were here, the builder was here, said it was heavily vegetated. Angie has since taken some pictures.
When were those taken?
Those were taken last week on Wednesday.
That's what it said.
Okay. One side looks good.
I did visit it, I believe it was Tuesday or Monday when it was raining a lot.
Okay.
And there was nothing coming down off either sides. There was no silt going in, but that's the growth that they have currently.
Okay. And that was about a week ago you took those?
Yeah.
Give or take. And the side that's least vegetated is up against the brook, correct?
On the side where on the other side of the silt fencing and hay bales, I don't believe that side ever was really super heavily vegetated. I think we're just trying to get a thick lawn in.
Right.
And it's growing very tall, but I don't think it's very full.
Comments? Do you want to wait? Is there no vegetation that you see, or?
I mean, it's spotty, but it looks stable. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't see exposed soil.
down.
I mean, I see bare spots, but it's not like
Yeah.
it's not like glaring exposed soil. So it's kind of just a judgment call, I guess. Not having seen the site,
Yeah.
you know.
Has anybody seen it other than Angie? What are your thoughts?
I'd be comfortable issuing a COC because nothing, when I went there when it was raining, there was nothing was moving. It's all very stable and very compacted. I just think it's kind of growing in a little funny because of the soils there. But it seems very stable to me.
Okay. So do I have a motion to issue a COC for 567 Pierce Street or something else?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for file number 199-1062, 567 Pierce Street.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All right. Sheldon Hill, 199-1028. That says site visit was on 6/19. Site is partially stabilized.
So I did go out there and they did stabilize parts of the site. The front is still completely silt, and a portion of the back is not stabilized as well. Wildflowers are naturally just growing in from the neighboring properties. I don't think they put anything down to stabilize it. I think it's just kind of coming up naturally now. But I would give it a couple more weeks before I feel comfortable issuing this to the front.
Okay. If If you can, before our next meeting, if you can take some pictures, that's always helpful. So we can see. Extension permits.
Not this time.
Do we have any new communications? I know you're on vacation, you didn't want to deal with anything, but. All right, meeting minutes. We have a whole bunch of people here, so tonight's the night.
Let's do it.
All right, has everybody had a chance to review all these meeting minutes? They're all on Google Drive. Okay. All right, meeting minutes for March 26, 2019. I was not here, and Mr. Giannakis was not here. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented or something else?
I will make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented for the March 26, 2019 meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Opposed? And abstained? All right, meeting minutes for 4/9/2019. Mr. Stowe and Mr. Colombo were absent. Any comments? If not, do I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes for April 9th, 2019 as presented.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Opposed? And abstained? And finally, the meeting minutes for May 14th. Mr. Stone was absent. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from May 14th, 2019.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? And abstained? New business.
Not this time.
The city's under control. Old business, Moose-Knock Brook, you got some money. Did you find some on vacation?
No, not yet.
Okay. Have you been down there to look to see, like,
Yeah.
with all the issues with the way the river was or the brook was and stuff?
Doesn't seem to be moving at all. Water does get pretty high, but it hasn't gone over the Jersey barrier since I think last spring. Even then, it stayed stabilized. DPW did go down and trim some overhanging branches from the trees and overgrown vegetation. They didn't like touch the soil, but just took some stuff down to prevent it from falling in.
Was there an issue about how it was flowing underneath the culvert or the brook, under the bridge there on Mechanic Street?
Yeah, nothing's come of that yet. We're still kind of waiting on them.
Keep us posted. Keep looking for money. Actually, I saw the mayor has some $9 million in free cash.
We only need $1 million for the
Exactly.
repairs.
I saw that in the newspaper. There was $9 million in free cash. They're going to spend it on the schools and some other things, but hit the mayor up for $1 million to fix Moose-Knock Brook with the 9 whatever millions in free cash.
If it fails, it's going to be an even bigger.
It's going to be a big one if it fails. You got that right. So,
Put it off tomorrow lately.
right. So, wasn't sure if you saw that or not, but I read the newspaper.
We'll definitely look into that.
Enforcements, 8 Nutting Drive. This says it's continued. So.
Actually, after I posted the agenda, right before I left on third Wednesday, they did drop off an RDA to do the work, so that'll be on the next meeting.
All right, perfect. Harvest Street says no updates. So the work's been completed except for on the road.
Yeah,
What I call on the road.
yeah, the upper part.
Okay.
So they have until the end of July, which I reminded them
Okay. When was the last time you had any contact?
about 2 weeks ago. Mr. Cleves has been keeping them aware of their deadline as well.
Okay. 909 Elm Street. That's the retaining wall one, right?
Yes.
Where's that at?
So, he has hired Hannigan Engineering to represent him. They've gone out, they've flagged both sides of the road now. And they've discovered that portion of work that was approved under the last permit, I believe, is in the riverfront area. But because they didn't flag that side of the road, it wasn't, the commission wasn't aware. So what they want to do now is they want to try and just pull, it's right on the outer brink of the riverfront area, but they want to pull the wall closer to his home and pull it out of the riverfront. It's not really a wall either, as he's explained to me. He's going to work with the building department to go over that kind of verbiage of what it should be, but it's really, he said it's really just a pile of rocks and boulders.
What's that?
Isn't that what a wall is? I mean, I've seen a wall.
So he's going to be working with the building inspector to see whether or not it qualifies as a retaining wall. But they're going to try and pull it all out, and they're going to revegetate the area. They would prefer just to work under the enforcement order, so they can do it quicker and they can start revegetating the area that was supposed to be riverfront area. I feel like that's probably the best choice to get it done quicker rather than. And then what I've learned recently, I went to a training at the library with DEP, is that you have more pull with an enforcement order because the DEP can step in, and as long as, for example, this one says, we have to fix the problem, or sometimes you have to file an NOI. Once they file an NOI, they don't exactly have to fix the problem if you don't word it correctly, so they think it's better to work under the enforcement order. So.
Any idea of timeline or anything like that at this point?
I think they're just waiting and working it out with the building inspector. Last time I checked, and I spoke to them on Tuesday.
Okay.
Last Tuesday.
All right, 9 Penny Lane. We issued the enforcement orders last meeting. It says continued to the July 9th meeting.
So I wanted to make sure that they both had adequate time to receive the enforcement orders, and they both have received them. So I just put July 9th on the enforcement order. So.
Okay. Have you had any contact with the builder?
Yes, he did come by the office to discuss, and he's hired Leominster to represent him.
Okay. '66 Granite Street, Gardner spot.
Yes, so I did receive a complaint from an abutter who has a view from his backyard of a Gardner spot. So it looks like he's been I haven't gone to the physical site, but it looks like he's been putting in multiple drainage pipes. Even over this past weekend, I got another phone call. Someone said, you can see it, he's putting in drainage pipes depositing straight into the Minnesota, I believe. And when I went over to take a look just to ensure it wasn't a neighborly issue. When I was looking, through the woods, you can kind of see where he did put some sort of pavement cement pad in right within 10 feet of the brook, as well as it is in the floodplain. And while he may be exempt from our jurisdiction for something because agricultural, he's not from the planning board, I discovered, or the building department, and he has not filed for anything. So I've talked to both departments, and they're getting involved. I'll find out tomorrow more, but Mr. Morrow was supposed to be here to represent him. I did talk to Mr. Morrow and ask him to cease all work within that area until we can figure out what's going on. Unfortunately, I got another call on Sunday that he was putting in more drainage pipes, and he was trying to block the view because I drove by with bags of dirt, like pallets of dirt. But if you look, you can kind of see where there was a machine working.
Is this another case of the dirty side of farming, as you put it?
So.
Yeah, I got obviously a big issue with this one because obviously, we had this conservation plan which is up on the agenda already, but, it seems to me like he doesn't think that the rules or the laws apply to him and he can just just do whatever he wants. And especially Moonsnot Brook in the condition that has been in, and I think it was an E. coli thing, and at this point I don't know what else to do other than issue a cease and desist until we can figure out what's going on.
And the city spent a lot of money to beautify the downtown and the Moonsnot Brook Dreamway.
Well, that's what I mean.
We have pollution, direct pollution going right into.
We're spending a lot of money, from basically with a wall collapsed all the way up and around. I mean, that's been heavily polluted, and they've been trying for years, for at least the last 10 years anyways, trying to get that brook as clean as they can get it. And he's a major contributor of.
Right, and sitting there and hiding behind, this is the dirty side of farming. I mean, that to me just is a bad, it gives the farmers a bad name, because not all farmers behave this way. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Go ahead.
sorry, so I haven't been at the site, so I can't, I didn't see the PVC pipes being put in. I didn't see, all I saw was them smoothing out a small paved area. So I don't know what they've done. I didn't go onto site because of the issues we've had in the past. So they were supposed to be here tonight to discuss further, so we can kind of see, is it in violation of the Wetland Protection Act, or is it an agricultural exemption or not? So I don't know if we should maybe just continue to the next meeting.
Well, I mean, we definitely, I don't want to say I want to continue it yet, but I mean, the last time Mr. Morrow was here and Mr. Zaney were here, they promised this conservation plan was going to address all of the issues and address what is exempt and what isn't exempt. This doesn't tell me anything other than what kind of soil is on
No,
site.
there's nothing in it.
I mean, it just tells me about, his soil and his farming practices and stuff, but it doesn't talk about any drainage issues or how he's handling runoff, other than there's no erosion at the brook. So when they were here a year ago with the original issue, it really hasn't been addressed. And the promise of, well, this person's going to solve all the agricultural exemption lines, that doesn't state anything here. And when someone sits in here and says that's the dirty side of farming, I have big issues with that, because he's hiding behind, I'm a farm, I'm agricultural, I can do anything I want. That's how I take it. And especially if you get into the floodplain issues and all that other stuff, he's definitely not exempt from that, as you said. So,
I viewed the property on Friday, June 21st, on two occasions, 12:15 and 2:30. And at both times, standing on Granite Street, looking at the resource area, there was a machine that was parked there. Had a lot of PVC pipes, and there was a worker carrying pipes from that machine over to the river. So the work is being done. I didn't photograph it, I just had my cell phone with me. If I had a camera with a lens, I could have got some nice pictures. But and this idea that he's exempt because he's an agriculturalist, I take issue with that, because a lot of his product is no different than a product at Lowe's or Home Depot.
that's correct.
He brings in wholesale products and retails them out. He's not growing those trees. And he claims that he wants that area to store those products in. They're not products that he's growing. So, I don't see the exemption. And I concur with you, the report that we have gives us nothing as far as a plan for what he wants to do, either now or in the future. It's a soil study. We know the soils already.
So what's our options, Angela, at this point?
So I think our best option and most diplomatic option would be to wait until we have a site visit, wait until we can speak with them and have, I believe what you said, but we don't have pictures to prove it, we don't have pictures to send to the state. The only thing I can say that he's really absolutely in violation was that he was supposed to inform the Conservation Commission before he does any work in the resource area, not to file for a permit, but just to include us in it. But I would rather get them in here and discuss it with them and find out what really happened see where these pipes are going, but we don't, for all we know, they might just be irrigation pipes, that they're putting into the greenhouses. But it is ultimate mission. I also want to see what the other departments say about the building permits, and he didn't file for the special permit for the floodplain work, and he put up multiple greenhouses there.
I mean, at some point, I don't know how to stop them from doing it, but notice has to be sent to, and again, it's up to the commission, you know. You said you spoke to Mr. Morrow,
Yeah,
but I think we should,
check in on it.
I think we should personally go to the property owner, myself, and say,
I can send maybe an informal enforcement, requiring him to come to the meeting, because I really don't know what's on the enforcement order, what he's violated.
We could just say cease and desist all work
Yeah.
within the resource area,
and that's a 200-foot buffer there, right? So,
Yeah.
that's pretty much his whole property.
It's the same question at all. I think we should definitely try to stop it as soon as we can.
Okay.
And that way we can just continue more, potentially more harm from being done, and then assess the situation and go from there.
Right.
But if we wait and it's another 2 weeks and, more work gets done,
Mr. Stone, do you have experience with anything like this?
I have a lot of experience with enforcement. If we're going to issue enforcement, then we want to be clear that he is indeed violating the act. And that's hearing everything tonight so far. I don't get that feeling that we know that answer.
Right.
So we don't actually have details of what he's doing.
Right.
The WPA is pretty specific when it comes to their exemptions, so I think we definitely need, we need him to either come in, or we need to have a site visit to figure out what he's actually doing and figure out what he's thinking. Like, obviously he thinks everything he's doing is exempt.
Well, I mean, for the two of you that are new, that
That's
weren't here
my-
a year ago, basically that's
Kind of what I'm thinking, just based on,
that's what the discussion was about, was
yeah.
is he exempt and isn't he? And, no one on this board was an agricultural expert. He had told us at the time, this conservation plan, which was going to be an agricultural expert, was going to address what was exempt, what wasn't exempt, and it's just a soil study. It really has nothing to do with
Right.
drainage and what we were talking about. So to this point, we still don't know. This commission still doesn't know what is exempt and what isn't. I mean, I read through all the agricultural exemptions, and the first, which is a 10, you used to know it off the top of your head, 10, whatever it was.
Right.
It specifically said unless it's going into a brook, or the very thing that said it's not exempt, and he sat here and argued. So I have a feeling that when he comes in, he's just going to say, well, I'm agricultural. And he basically said that, Ms. Giannakis said that. He basically said, well, this is the dirty side of farming, and I'm exempt from all these rules because I'm agricultural.
But then, like Paul said, it's
No,
not truly farming. It's
Well, yeah, that's the
wholesale
thing,
retail.
right? Like, the WPA is very specific, and there's very specific definitions of everything. I don't have a lot of experience with agricultural exemptions, but I have a lot of experience with the other exemptions, and having to go through and really look at something to be, look at an entire project to actually be able to say, yes, you guys are exempt from this, because it's like, the whole project is probably not exempt, right? So I think we need a detailed list of what he's doing. He can say he's exempt all he wants. It doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
Regardless, if he's working the floodplain, you kind of have to know this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't even think of that, I mean, if he's adding stuff in the floodplain, that goes, that's planning board or city council?
It's planning board.
Planning board stuff, okay, so. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess we'll get,
He's not exempt from altering the floodplain under the wetlands regs.
is that, okay,
Yeah, no, it's definitely,
yeah,
he definitely should have notified, especially if he's filling something that water could infiltrate through with something that water can't infiltrate through,
right,
right? Like, that's completely altering
right,
the floodplain.
okay. All right, well, I'm going to make a recommendation to Angela that she issue some sort of informal notice to the property owner, at least, to say that we need him or his representative at the next meeting.
Should we also send a certified letter requesting him to cease and desist any and all activities until he can explain what he is doing?
It's up to the commission.
Well, I'll make a motion that we send a certified letter to the owner of the gardening spot to cease and desist all activities in the resource area until he can come before the commission and outline the work that he's conducting.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
I would just say that in the letter, if we know what resource areas that are there, maybe ask Angela to be specific in it, to say within 200 feet of this brook you can't do
Right.
work. Just whether or not that'll work, I would just prefer we be as specific as possible in what we mean by that, but I will second the motion to send that.
We obviously have to go straight to the owner because going through Mr. Monroe and obviously it hasn't really caused any changes.
All in favor, or any more discussion?
I think the more the basic, less of interpretation, the better. Too. Like, he did very definitive about what the resource area is, but I don't want to, and just make sure we include him. I would say he should be here because Mr. Morrow isn't necessarily, like there might be farming related questions, specific, like what that pipe was for that was being installed, but Mr. Morrow might not know that,
I agree.
It would make more sense for the person that did the work to explain what's going on so that we can get a better sense of what's going on. He can bring Mr. Morrow with him, certainly, but it'd be nice for him to just explain what he's doing.
Yes, sir.
I still think we're asking him to prove he's innocent before he's found guilty, if we send something like that. I mean, it really should be, hopefully, cordial phone calls or site visits or some other mechanism other than enforcement. Because again, for all we know, he hasn't done anything wrong, so asking him to submit or to cease and desist, we're accusing him right there of violating the performance regs. So if there's something that the commission feels that he's absolutely in violation of the act and you want to vote on enforcement for that reason, that's fine. But if it's really guessing at this point, which I kind of, at least on my end, I feel like we are. We know this activity's taking place, but nothing specific that says, yep, that's not exempt, here's what's going on, we need to correct that. So that's just my take on it. I know in the past, communication's taken a long time, and that's, I get the impression that that's why some of you have tonight want to kind of push the enforcement part of it. But like I said, my experience with enforcement, you want to be right. Enforcement's black and white, and if there's gray areas, you really shouldn't act on it until you know what's going on.
But to send a letter of non-compliance, like we used to call it a letter of non-compliance. We had like a form letter that said, activity, done on this site appears to be in violation. Please come to the next meeting to discuss this. It wasn't like an actual enforcement order. It was just like a letter, asking them to come in, saying that,
Non-compliance to me says you're in violation of the regulation.
Right, but it wasn't an actual enforcement order. It was just a letter asking them to come in to discuss it.
Well, whether it's an actual enforcement order under the WPA form or a letter or something, if I'm receiving that, to me, that's enforcement. And if it's legitimate, that's one thing, but if it's not, then at some point it becomes harassment. So it's again, if it's actual enforcement action we're taking, regardless of which type of form, whether it's a letter or something more formal, you want to be certain that that's really a violation before you send it. At least that's my opinion.
So we can send them a letter asking them to come to the meeting to discuss his plans for the site and somewhere.
I personally would just.
We've been asking him to come in for like a year,
Well, I witnessed a backhoe in the resource area and a worker carrying pipes down to the river. It's not like I was seeing things. I saw it twice. Whatever he is doing, I think we need to stop that activity and get him in here to explain what he's doing. Or let's just look the other way and pretend it's not happening.
It is a violation because any work within a resource area is supposed to be filed for, or at least even with a farming exemption, it's supposed to be notified, he's supposed to notify the commission within 48 hours.
You should have something on file with us.
There's supposed to be notification, that's a very basic requirement.
If I may, I'm just gonna say on my personal belief is, I do completely support farms, and I don't want to get in a situation like I think Mr. Stone was suggesting, where we're possibly harassing a local business who's been here for a long time. I would like to try to get a meeting between Matt, myself, and him to go on site, look at it informally, discuss it, hear, maybe it really we might not have something to enforce it. Yes, he did come to us, but realistically, with the history I think he's had with the Conservation Commission, I don't know if I would be comfortable. He may have just felt uncomfortable. He may have, this is exempt, I don't need to call them. I put my conservation plan in. I don't want to jump to the formal enforcement fully. I'd rather just try and figure out what's going on and try and get them to come in here first. So.
I guess my question is I agree with all of it, is 2 weeks is a long time to wait. And kind of like with the catch basin issue from a year ago, by the time he sat in front of us, there was a lot of claims of what he did, but he couldn't prove that it was, what some commission members saw was a catch basin with a pipe leading to a brook. He came in and sat here and said, no, it has charcoal in it. I mean, he got really depth into what's in there. Well, let's see it. You can't because it's buried in the ground. So we'd force him to dig it up. 2 weeks, he could be done this project and come in and say, no, that was irrigation. Like, well, prove that it was irrigation. Not, you know what I mean? So I'd love to say, can you at least just stop doing what you're doing until you sit with, either have an on-site visit with the conservation agent, or be at the next meeting, but to just kind of, like they say, sometimes it's easy to ask for forgiveness, and I have a feeling he's not going to ask for forgiveness. He's just going to say, yeah, it was this. And is he going to pull up a concrete or an asphalt pad? No. Is he going to, I know I wouldn't. So that's my biggest thing is, we need to keep it informal because we really don't know, but until we don't know, in the meantime, is he doing something that's against the planning board, against the Wetlands Protection Act, against potentially building department, against a lot of this stuff? Then when it's all done, is it, sorry, slap my hand, I won't do it again, but I got my project in. That's my fear.
For this, that 2-week window gives a lot of time for.
Yeah, I mean, you can get a lot of work done in 2 weeks, so that's,
Even if it's hard to define whether it needs to be something formal or informal.
Well, I mean, is it something where you could try to call the homeowner tomorrow? Because, I mean, you got phone calls saying, hey, I'm seeing this person doing this.
Yeah.
Right? That right there at least gives you a reason to call and say, hey,
Yeah, and
I've gotten multiple phone calls. Can we have a meeting to discuss what's going on down there?
yeah, so.
I think that would be okay, but like to send something formal or even informal, but saying it's not in compliance, like, I don't think it's gonna keep the dialogue open at that
Right.
point.
We have two people, one of which is a commission member,
Yeah.
who has said, hey, I noticed something going on back there, it doesn't look right. I feel like that at least elicits kind of, I don't know if authorization is the right word, but authorization for you to at least give a phone call and say, hey, we need to have a meeting because.
Which I have done already. I have contacted his representative. This is kind of a ongoing situation.
Right.
So
I mean, if we can do that,
You try the property owner.
So I've called, I don't have his actual cell phone anymore. I got the new work phone, but I've called the store and have not gotten a call back. It is his busy season. So Matt was was gonna talk to him and set up a meeting at some point to, get out there and look at it. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here tonight, so I don't know if he actually got out there yet or not. But this kind of all unraveled right as I was leaving last week, so.
I'm not comfortable with the homeowner's representative that he's paying telling us what he's doing there. We need an impartial person to tell us what's going on. So,
Especially there's already been an effort to contact his representative.
Yeah.
They seem to have talked to him forward.
so how do we want to proceed as a commission?
I mean, if this was, take the farm out of this, if this was just his home and there was a backhoe within, 10, however many feet from a perennial stream, we would have sent a cease and desist immediately.
It's about 55 feet where it was. It's
So
same place
50
with
feet
the
from a perennial stream with a backhoe is something that anyone else in the city that wasn't a farm would get some sort of letter saying, activity in the resource area needs to stop until you come in to see us. I mean, we don't know that he's exempt from, with an agricultural exemption, and he said he was gonna come back. It's been a year. He hasn't come back. He gave us that form, but there's nothing in there that says there's gonna be added pipes, more drainage pipes or water pipes or whatever kind of pipes they are going directly to the, within 55 feet of a perennial stream. So we need to get something to the homeowner asking them to discuss it with the board. Have them just come in. Just say, hey, we saw a backhoe within 50 feet of a perennial stream. We got calls from the neighbors. We have people that saw the work being done. We just want you to come in and discuss what you're doing. None of the work we weren't notified. Nobody notified the commission 48 hours in advance. It could have been in writing or by email or by voicemail. So if he doesn't want to talk to you, he could have left you a voicemail.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. So all we're looking for is to find out what's going on. So we need something that that at least gets delivered to him that says, hey, we'd like to talk about this. That's kind of my thought. I mean, this has been over a year this has been going on. And we had a problem a year ago, and nothing came of it, and now it's happening again. It appears this, what we had an issue with last time, not only was it not resolved or discussed, but now there's additional work potentially being done. So the longer we wait, it's just compounding the problem. All we want him to do is come in and tell us what he's doing and, show us evidence, from his, from the farming. He said there's a farming resource that he would bring to the meeting that would go over all this stuff and explain to us how the work that he's doing is in fact exempt. That hasn't happened. So a year later, we're seeing activity. We need to react to it.
So as a commission, do we want to do it formally through a letter? Do we want to leave it up to our conservation agent to make a phone call? Do we want a timeline to hear back?
That's what I was thinking, possibly. Maybe if you reached out, don't hear anything, maybe 3 days or something like that. Because you should be taking care of me, but you don't want to cross any harassment lines or anything like that where we aren't completely sure whether he's in any violation. So if you reach out and then don't hear anything, then maybe we can contact them through something formal or more formal.
I mean, I'd have to watch the video again, but when he was here, he said, if you have any questions, just ask. And we have asked, and he's ignored. He hasn't even called, answered the call. So, I mean, if he's not going to answer by phone, then the only avenue we have is to send a letter. I don't see that as harassment. I think it's just a letter saying, can we please discuss this? But yeah, I mean, if we can reach out and that way it works, that's fine. But there should be some sort of deadline, like.
Mr. Chairman, I'll amend my motion, and I will add to the front end of it that we give the owner 48 hours to explain what he's doing there to our agent, and our agent be able to go on the property and witness what is being done. And after the end of those 48 hours, then I would keep the motion the same. Certified letter, stop activities, he needs to come in and explain himself.
That's a 200-foot buffer,
Area
so stop any construction.
And he's well within the 100-foot zone.
Right. Stop any construction. And we can't stop him from doing his business, but we can stop him from doing construction.
Right.
Any discussion?
You need a second for that.
Well,
Yes.
I think we gotta be careful, like, I mean, I totally agree with Brad, like, as far as how we word it, and there's a lot of things that are he can do on that property, there's a lot of construction he can do.
Send it as a request for information.
Yeah, I think it has to be just a request for him to just, come in and
But
talk
there's
to us.
a title of, doesn't have to say enforcement, just a request for information letter.
I do disagree just because the last time we did work with him, he became very scared and upset receiving a letter. I think verbally talking to him is the best way to communicate and to make it not be confrontational. But if you guys want me to send a letter as well, I can.
But I mean, to do that, you have to actually be able to talk to them, right? And so going through Mount Morrow isn't really gonna help. And if you can't get a hold of him, or if you call him and he doesn't call back, then, because I agree with you, I think it is better to be able to have a conversation and then just go on site and figure out what's going on. But then we run into a situation of you just, you could call him tomorrow and somebody could pick up and you could talk to him. You could also call him tomorrow and a week from now, we still haven't been able to talk to him. So I agree that there's a fine line there, but I think we need to have some kind of a
See, I have an issue with,
timeline. Just
well,
'cause-
yes, but you made a comment about he got upset, nervous, and scared when he got a letter, but he wasn't upset or nervous or scared to do construction when he knew what he needed to do for our end. So, that's, you talk about harassment. I mean, not allowing people on his property, it's a business that he runs. Granted, it's his business, so he can tell people yes or no that they're not allowed on there, but, I honestly don't think this is a harassing, ask for a request for information, that's my opinion. And obviously, because of the communications or the lack thereof over the last year, making a phone call and not, you said you'd call the store. He knows who you are. He knows you're the conservation agent, City of Leominster. He hasn't returned your calls. I understand it's his busy season. He runs a business that's busy all the time. He can pick up the phone. I find that hard to believe if he doesn't have 2 minutes to pick up the phone and say, yes, ma'am.
So at this point too, he could be thinking, well, they haven't issued me anything, and I'm not getting their calls back. I might as well just keep ignoring them. So you only go so far with the calls before.
I mean, I agree with Ms. Giannakis that it doesn't matter if it's a business, a homeowner. If any one of us saw a backhoe within 50 feet of a brook, someone would be contacting them, a letter would be going out or something.
You can't really set a precedent. Kind of have to hold
That's
everyone
just
to the
my
same
opinion.
standard.
How we word the letter, I'm not a wordsmith. I don't think it needs to be enforced because we don't know if he's broken the law, and I prefer not to get Mr. Morrow involved until he has to, because using him as a representative isn't the best route for this particular project, in my opinion. Because he's been very non-responsive on a lot of items, but this one in particular as well. So we have a motion for a call to try to set up something on site no response. And I'm assuming Angela's pretty persistent. She'd probably make more than one call in that 48 hours.
What if the letter is just a request for a site visit?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I can just.
So that's all it has to be, is that whatever you're gonna say on the phone,
Yeah.
just, you know, put it in the letter. And it can be from, you know, have it just be from you. You know, as the agent, you'd like to go to the site to discuss, you know, what happened on the site, you know, due to calls from, you know, from residents and you know, eyewitness accounts of work being done in the resource area.
Yeah.
And you can just leave it at that. You don't have to, you know, but the Conservation Commission doesn't have to go out there if you know. But if we don't have it in writing, we don't have it documented, if we have to go to some sort of enforcement, we have nothing with a timestamp to show that he's been notified.
I agree. So we have a motion on the table for a call. Nothing is resolved within 48 hours. The same letter goes out. Do I have a second on that?
Second motion.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Do you need specifics for the letter?
That would be nice. I don't know what you guys want me to.
Just a request for you to visit the site and have
Visit
them
the site,
explain the activity that was.
witnessed by neighbors and one conservation member. Work being done in a resource area, but within a buffer zone in a resource area.
Because if we can get an idea of what was going on, we can then take that to the DEP and then, you know, or to a farm, you know, we can do some research at our end. You know, we don't have to, you know, at least we have some information to go on. To get an understanding.
Good, ma'am? Okay. Emergency certifications, 548 West Street. Is the bridge still in the brook?
No, he's removed the
Oh,
bridge.
okay.
It's finally low enough for him to get in there.
Not this afternoon, probably.
So he did come to my office to discuss, you know, putting the bridge back to the way it was supposed to be. I think in the past I discussed that there used to be a piece of wood, you know, a stilt going down into the actual brook. He doesn't want to have that anymore. He just wants, and he does carpentry. He just wants to put the two longer pieces of wood and then work his way across so he can get the other side, maintain his pool that's on the other side. It is in the floodplain, but it's high enough up where there's not really any vegetation underneath, but that's going to be damaged by this. It's been there since possibly the 60s. The city doesn't require building permits for private bridges, so it's kind of hard to say when the bridge was put in. I'm assuming when the home was put in, the pool was put in. So he's going to be in that work since it's not working in the physical resource area, and there's not going to be any damage, any vegetation underneath it.
So he's not putting, you said there used to be
It's still directly in.
into the brook, and he's just going to span the brook on the foundations that are existing now.
Yeah, which are in the bank. He's not adding anything or disturbing anything.
Okay. Just keep us posted. 598 Central Street Fire Station, the catch basin.
So I believe they were finishing up last week on Friday. I received a phone call. So I will be going out there tomorrow to check it out and see how far the work's come and make sure everything's all set.
Page Ave culvert. It says the work is completed. Was it completed last meeting too? Or
It was completed, I think, the day after.
the day after?
Last meeting.
Okay.
So they wanted to stabilize the slope a little better. But it's been completed. I'm going to be going out there tomorrow just to double check it, make sure with all the rain we've been having, there hasn't been too much erosion.
Okay. Did they state what they were gonna do, like at the culvert ends, they're just gonna put riprap, or how?
I think,
Was it over the road? It was over the road, correct?
yeah, it was
Well, under the road.
yeah, I was like, wait a second. No, yeah, it was under the road. They stabilized with a little bit of riprap, and then they had some straw wattles as well.
And 535 Johnny Appleseed,
Yes, I believe
Beaver Deceiver.
yes,
I like
so
that one.
it's actually a technical term. So I received a phone call from Mr. Fluent about his property. He owns the only outfall from White Pond, and he was having a lot of problems with beavers kind of crawling in there, a lot of debris going in there. They were damaging the culvert, so they finally cleared all the debris out, and he has specialist Mr. Gallagher, who came in and put a wooden plank up until I go out there and see the site. You know, there it does deposit into a wetland area, and because of all the backhand, there wasn't anything going out to the wetland that was causing blockages, you know, obvious issues with flooding, possibly happening, a lot of bacteria. I did talk to the health department. They felt it was an emergency, and that they said they declared it an emergency as well, which I have that email here. And so they actually got the work done as soon as I issued the emergency certification. It was done within a couple of days. It's flowing completely freely now. He emailed me today and said he hasn't had any problems. And he's been checking it daily, and he has cameras on it as well to make sure that it does not become clogged. And I will say they were really excellent to work with. You know, they invited me onto the site, you know, to see the whole thing. Myself and actually Marco went down to go check it out after it was done.
Okay, good. Did they have to relocate any beavers as part of this?
So I think they said there's over 24 beavers in that area.
Oh.
So they weren't able to obviously trap in. And there was not actually a physical dam blocking. It was mainly they were going in it, and like there was a lot of debris, and
Oh, okay.
it's kind of flowing down that way. So this is kind of keep them out of it. And he didn't want to trap or kill them because he felt they were part of the natural area. And he,
Okay.
you know, he owns 53 acres of land over there. It's all conservation. So
That's over on,
Johnny Appleseed Lane,
Johnny
by
Appleseed.
I-90, 190.
yeah, 190 Gold's Farm and all that.
Yeah, there's a horse farm there.
Okay. Any discussion? Project updates, we kind of talked about Granite Street and their conservation plan. The Hill Street kiosk. I noticed we had a couple people show up.
Yes, so they were mainly here because they just wanted to make sure that we weren't planning on expanding the parking area, which I explained to them that wasn't really my update at this time. And they also were concerned about the hunting issues, which I explained we weren't going to be discussing at this time either. The only update I have is that the area is not in the Green Gateway Cities map, so they're unable to do it. I did check with the DPW, and I received an email earlier today that they have some granite, and they want to meet with me to kind of mark out the property lines and put the granite down. I'm not sure how much they have. I took a guesstimate measurement. I think that will help prevent people from driving onto neighboring properties and kind of set the property lines a little better for parking. And then I did, Dick O'Brien did, from the Leominster Trail Stewards, stop by my office last week to discuss, you know, they were originally going to volunteer to be building a kiosk for us, but they wanted the actual signage inside the kiosk to be the same as the other signs in the city. I explained that, you know, we're working hard with the community, working hard to try and, you know, put up the 500-foot radius map that we had for the hunting areas, and that the area was so large, we also need to put like the watershed area. We kind of had specifics we really wanted for that, and so they actually backed out and said that they would not be assisting, and so we'll have to wait until the fall for a CTEI.
I thought we were gonna put the common city map on one side and have like another, have something like on the other side that had the hunting zone and the.
Yep, and I did try to explain to them kind of the what we had discussed. Unfortunately, it wasn't really what they were looking for. we'll just have to wait till the fall
Yeah.
and.
I mean, we still want the same sign that the rest of everyone else has
Yeah.
though too. I mean,
Right.
we want it to be uniform so that if you're at any trailhead in the city, that you have the same look and feel.
Yeah,
We're gonna include one additional map.
additional thing, which is kind of gonna change their layout, I guess.
Well, it could be on the backside, it's a two-sided kiosk, right?
So that was the update for right now. I'll have to meet with DPW to discuss the grant this week,
Okay.
hopefully when it's not raining.
They say they have enough granite to do the property lines.
They
Well,
think
you know,
they
'cause
do.
I-
And if there's any additional, I might put some, kind of in front of the cart path, to prevent anyone from driving up that. I don't know if you're familiar with the kind of area, it was a straight shot up, and I could see some people possibly driving up that way, and then I think it might be just kind of a cool.
That's fine. I just wondered, just kind of, because I know, I mean, I've been up there a couple times, so but, you know, the property area is big, but I thought at one point we were talking about just kind of keeping the parking out by the street.
Yeah,
So I
by
thought,
the
you know,
street.
if we have enough to do the property
Maybe
lines,
do
then kind of
little
like
area
a
a little better.
small little parking area. I know that was discussed, if they have enough.
I was thinking about throwing a bunch of flower seeds in there, and
That's fine.
I'm just,
That's fine, so,
yeah, so I'll evaluate how much they have and what we can do with it.
okay. Perfect. Keep us posted.
Absolutely.
Budget, you'll have numbers for our next meeting,
Yes.
because you were on vacation.
And it's kind of a mess right now with that, the end of the fiscal year, so.
Okay. Anything we should be concerned about at this point?
Nothing really. The only thing, was so the way that the comptroller's office works is they handle all of our withdrawals and deposits for the whole city, so while with, the older deposit that had been put in there, we had that was waiting to be taken back out, and it was in the process. The process had been started. For our money for our peer reviewers, they just deducted that amount out of the amount we requested and only requested the remainder. So instead of I think it was 3,500, they only requested 1,700, and then just added them together since they're both coming from the same account instead of having all the transactions going in and out. So that might be the only thing that looks odd.
We do have a new hearing, but,
Hi, I'm the representative.
huh? You're the representative.
Why, yes.
Okay, so I will open the new hearing then. So pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, will be a public hearing to consider a notice of intent for the city of Leominster. The city plans on replacing 3 culverts along Willard Street. A portion of the project is temporary disturbance to the riverfront area along the unnamed brook. Address is Willard Street, Leominster, Mass. DEP 199-1089. Do you have something to put up on the board?
I don't have anything up on the board. These are funny. My name is Angela Shabesky. I'm the conservation agent for the city. DPW is unfortunately unable to be here tonight, so they asked me just to kind of represent them and see if you guys had any questions about the NOI submitted along with the plans that they submitted. DEP did have some concerns, and I was CC'd on an email between Judy and Mr. Primarini. They were going to go out to the site to discuss those concerns. I haven't heard back from either of them.
What are the concerns, do you know?
I didn't print it up first, but her main concern was that there was no site, that she didn't receive any plans, as well as she didn't feel the NOI was filled out correctly, I believe, so, and she wanted to make sure the vegetation was correct, so I think she wanted to see it. She also wanted them to meet the stream crossing standards, which I believe you attended the site walk with myself and Mr. Perini. Unfortunately, DPW is able to do this project because they had a little extra money and they have the actual materials to do the work now. And they need to repave that road, so if they just repaved the road and didn't fix the culverts, it would kind of be a backward step in a couple years if those culverts do collapse. Most of them are bottom out or oval. But they are unable to meet the stream crossing standards from the information they provided me.
Yes, I did, we did have a site visit, me and Angela went. It's 3 culverts, one of them's, looks like a cast iron pipe, basically a riveted pipe, so it's extremely old. Has no bottom to it, because it's rotted out. So that culvert, they were just gonna place plastic sleeve in it, basically a pipe inside of that one. So I can't imagine that's gonna get much disturbance. One of them was an 18-inch high by 36-inch wide oval culvert that was getting crushed. You could definitely see it degrading. Of course, the bottom doesn't exist. They were putting in a 36-inch by 36-inch culvert there, I believe, in that location. And the other one, I didn't climb down to look in the pipe.
The one over by the railroad.
Yeah, but
Yes.
it, you know, okay.
I'm sorry, that's a 24-inch corrugated metal culvert. They're going to replace it with a reinforced concrete culvert. And it's a drainage channel, and the flow is intermittent.
So, you know, we did talk about the stream crossings not being able to be met. You guys can discuss that, but I mean, 2 of the culverts are pretty in bad shape. One of them is collapsing. You know, they're talking a couple days of construction, not really doing much to the, basically closing the road, digging it up, putting the new 2 new culverts in, and one they're just going to sleeve in the steel pipe that's there. So,
Another thing is that it's kind of imperative for them to get the work done this summer because during the school year they have school buses that they have to work around, so they would need to close their roads down.
because it's actually affecting 2 roads. It's Willard Street and Old Mill Road. They're going to actually close both of them.
A portion of it will not be.
Yeah.
Sounds like we gotta just wait for DEP to be satisfied.
Yeah, and that's fine. You know.
I haven't seen the plan, so I'm.
And I did talk to Mark about that. I wasn't sure if this was kind of like they had time now, they need to do it right now sort of thing. They have Blue Diamond will be doing the work for them. And I forget where he's working off the top of my head, but he's doing always doing a water line over on Lindell right now. So he said it's not a huge deal if it has to wait another meeting. They did want to get done this summer.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's plans to pave that road too, like you said, makes complete sense to get it done.
Does the city have a moratorium on paved roads unless it's an emergency? Like a lot of towns, you know, once they pave roads, you can't dig it up unless it's an emergency for like 5 years.
I'm not. I don't believe so because
I've seen them dig up roads that
I'm
they
like-
just paved.
Well, you know,
Yeah, they've done it a couple times, so I can't say
but a lot of
for
towns
sure.
have. There's usually a 5-year unless it's emergency. You know.
You just paved it.
I know. I'm just.
I
You know.
almost had to check with Mr. Racine about that, or Mr. Carini, but I don't believe the city has that. I haven't heard of it.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I think the commission would like to wait to hear back from DEP, do their site visit, and keep us posted on the next. So you think you'll have some information for our next meeting?
Yes.
Hopefully site plans, and you said Judy actually wants to go
She
out.
wanted to take a look at the sites, and Mr. Carini did submit plans, which I did add to the Google Drive.
Okay.
So those are
That's
there.
it. I thought I saw something. Okay.
So I respectfully request for continuance to the July 9th meeting.
Yes. Yeah.
I was going through a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Angela, do you know if there's floodplain involved with any of these?
I don't believe so. I'd have to take a look at that image. No, it was checked on here. It does say riverfront area, but nothing.
I mean, there's quite often floodplains with a
Yeah.
river, so it's,
So one of the streams is perennial. I believe it's small orange.
so I guess that's one thing I'd like some clarification on is if we're dealing with floodplains on any of these. Also, I was looking through what was recently submitted as plans, and these are pretty incomplete. This looks more or less some sketching on GIS information. It's not really showing what's there for resource areas, what's potentially being altered for resource areas. There's discussion in the NOI about adding head walls to one of the culverts. I think it's culvert number 3, if I'm not mistaken. And in part of the NOI, it also says it all works within the right-of-way, but it looks like, at least as a sketch, that one of these head walls is outside the right-of-way. So there should be some verification of, is the city working on city property or not at that point. Maybe the city owns that adjacent parcel, I don't know. But there really does need to be a lot more detail on the plans and within the NOI. And I recognize the timing constraints that the city's appears to be under, and the lack of planning to this point for this project may be of no fault of their own, because I understand as a DPW employee in another community, sometimes you think you don't have money for a project, you suddenly get it, and meeting these time constraints can be quite challenging. But at the same time, it's no excuse really not to be properly prepared permitting-wise. I mean, there's no way around the regulations. If you expect a plan to show where the resource areas are, what's being altered, we want to make sure that what's being presented to us is what's actually being done. And time constraints isn't really an excuse to kind of circumvent that. At least from what's being presented, I can't tell you if they meet performance standards at all, just from looking at the information we have so far. The NOI does say that they're exempt under the wetland regulations, but I would disagree on that, especially having done many of these culvert projects myself. And then I guess if there is any culvert out there, and I know, Dan, you mentioned you've seen them, if there's something that's in imminent failure, so the thing could collapse tomorrow, then that's something that we, as a commission, could consider as an emergency certificate if need be. But that's not something you want to use for things that need regular repair work either. So
yeah, there was nothing that was eminently collapsing.
It wasn't like the other two former situations with the Central State Fire Station or the PJAB. It wasn't really.
No, they're slowly decaying. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
Over time.
A couple more years, you might have to deal with it. So
Okay.
they can definitely wait.
So I recognize some comments about waiting to hear for DEP, but I think we should be thinking of our own concerns as well.
I'm gonna address that.
Yeah, I hadn't seen the
tomorrow.
plan, so I haven't either.
Is it off the Google Docs?
And Angela had put it up on the Google Drive, yeah.
Because I opened them and I looked and I was just like, okay, they're there, but I haven't looked at them.
That's my take.
Anything further?
No, I mean, we would ask any homeowner to provide the resource area clearly outlined on the plan and a limit of work, erosion controls, all that kind of stuff, so.
Okay. Can you address that with your client?
I'll address that with my coworker.
Very good. Nice. Anything else? Our next meeting is July 9th. We got a lot of things continued till July 9th.
I just wanted to make an announcement that the second meeting in July, I believe it's July 23rd,
Yes, the 23rd. Yep.
will be canceled. It'll be posted as well, but I just wanted to make the announcement to the commission.
Due to lack of interest.
Due to lack of quorum. Sorry. And I'll be away. I know a couple other commission members will be away that week, so.
All vacation. I keep telling you guys, it's all canceled. All vacations will be canceled. So this is. All right. Anything else anybody'd like to discuss? And seeing nothing, I declare the meeting adjourned.